The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Let me just say, after video distorting the belt to proclaim me the real world champion, I'm going to tell you all, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
Hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, and as always, powered up by Belly Up Sports and, of course, SeatGeek.com. Go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code Captain Lou for $20 off your first purchase. And again, if there's a big game, conference championship games are upon us. Of course, that being Baltimore hosting Kansas City and Detroit traveling to San Francisco to take on the San Francisco 49ers. And if you want to go to those games and you want to try to check it out, maybe get a better seat price, go to SeatGeek.com and use the promo code Captain Lou for $20 off your first purchase. Again, you're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, powered up by Belly Up Sports. And before we get into talking about the NFC and AFC championship games and the divisional championship rounds, the breaking news just came out about 15 or 20 minutes ago, according to Adam Schefter, and it's been kind of shared, if you will, by other media outlets. Adam Schefter of the ESPN was the first one I saw, the report that Jim Harbaugh has indeed agreed to become the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. And so the wait is over. If you will, the Jim Harbaugh watch is over. And now we're going to have to see who's going to be indeed the next head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. And it's been a good run for Jim Harbaugh. He was successful at every stop so far. He's gotten the ultimate prize in the NCAA. But, you talk about the first big question. Is he striking while the iron is hot, cashing in on his success at Michigan, or is he pulling a Pete Carroll and maybe one step ahead of the NCAA with some sanctions that may be coming down with the cheating scandal, if you will? And of course, they still supposedly don't have everything ironed out with the other transgressions, if you will, coming from back in 2000 during the COVID era when it came to the recruiting scandal or their supposed recruiting scandal. So Jim Harbaugh is indeed going to the LA Chargers. He's going to hook up with Justin Herbert. And I got to tell you, it's going to be fun to watch him and the Los Angeles Chargers now. There's going to be no more excuses for the Chargers. They got the offensive-minded coach that they wanted. They got the so-called disciplinarian. So, again, Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers. He's been successful at every level. Of course, he started out at the University of San Diego, then went to Stanford, and then became a coach of the San Francisco 49ers. Took them to, I know, at least 2 championship games, and, of course, the Super Bowl against his brother, where they lost to the Baltimore Ravens in New Orleans. Gosh, it's been 10 years ago at least now, if not longer. And then, of course, he went to the University of Michigan, spent 9 years at Michigan, and the ultimate prize this year, winning the national championship in convincing fashion. He's had a heck of a run the last 3 years, getting to the NCAA playoffs, the college football playoffs, if you will, and then making his way to the NFL now, winning the top prize in the NCAA. And now the next question, obviously, who is going to be the Michigan head coach? And I'm sure there's obviously around here in the state of Michigan with the Lions, as successful as they are, it's going to take a backseat to that for a little while. But now we'll keep an eye on the University of Michigan. Do they promote Sharon Moore? Do they go outside the box, bring somebody in? I'm sure they're going to have there's going to be a lot. They're not going to have to worry about suitors coming in to try to get this job. But obviously, the big question is, what is the NCAA going to do to Michigan with or without Jim Harbaugh? I got a feeling some kind of sanctions might be hit, but with Harbaugh gone, now what are they going to do? Are they just going to fine Michigan? Are they going to try to attempt maybe to, I don't know, vacate games or the title? Who knows? That's, to me, I think that would be a little bit of a stretch, but who knows? They might, the university will get sanctioned one way or the other, but and again, who knows how long that's going to take? It could take a couple of years yet, but we'll have to wait and see. So, yeah, the big news of the day, again, right before we came on, according to Adam Schefter from ESPN, it looks like Jim Harbaugh is going to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, hey, everybody, thanks for taking time out tonight. I apologize for not doing an extravagant few minutes or the episodes after our last show. That good old boy we know as COVID kind of took me by the short and curlies this weekend, and I've been down and out since last Thursday. I was able to watch the game, obviously, Sunday night, but not with the venom. I don't know if the venom's the right word. Not with the energy level that I would like to have. I barely made it through the show last Wednesday, as I'm sure some of you, I know I had some friends of mine comment on how rough it sounded, and I apologize for that. Still kind of getting my sea legs back, hopefully back to work as normal tomorrow, but it's been one heck of a run. So I apologize for not having my extravagant few minutes episodes. Hopefully we'll have those back tomorrow, if not definitely by the weekend, as we get back into game shape here. So we've got a lot to talk about here tonight. We've got the divisional round of the NFL playoffs that were this past weekend. Some really good games. Some squeakers, a couple of surprises maybe as far as how the games went. Not really surprised with any of the outcomes. But the Final Four of the NFL is set, obviously. And we will talk a little bit about the NFL division, the divisional playoff weekend here in a minute. Want to let you know that at the bottom of the hour, Boz Echivarre is going to join us. He is our San Francisco 49er insider. He's been on the Extravaganza a few times, and he's a big San Francisco guy, so I know he's excited. It's going to be a friendly rivalry between him and I this weekend with the Lions and the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. So really looking forward to talking to Boz. It's been a while since he's been on the show. We like to talk a little NHL with him from time to time as well, but football is still center stage here with the Final Four weekend of the NFL. The college football season over for now, but like I said, with the Lions taking on the 49ers and, of course, Baltimore and Kansas City, that's going to be a heavyweight matchup to start things off on Sunday in the NFC Championship Sunday scene, and we're going to talk about that as well. The divisional playoff weekend started out, we talked about it, the opening game out of the chute, Baltimore and Houston. And Baltimore, they blew past them in the second half. First half, a little scary as Lamar and the Ravens woke up at halftime, 10-10 at the half. And the Ravens didn't look sharp. We talked about it last week a little bit. Was it rest or was it rust? What was going to be the case with the number one seeds on Saturday? Baltimore came out a little rusty. And Houston, with that punt return to make it 10-10, all of a sudden, it took the wind out of Baltimore's sails for a while, but they were able to rebound. And what can you say about Lamar? It's just he's on a mission. We talked about it last week with he's had the chip on his shoulder with being 1-3 in the playoffs in his career, and he wanted to come back and he wanted to make a statement, and he did. Over 100 yards rushing last week against Houston, and he was a one-man wrecking crew, and he's got I know he wants to get to the Super Bowl. He wants to win the ultimate prize like everybody does, but I think he's been hearing the press clippings along with Patrick Mahomes, which we'll talk about in a little bit, about winning a playoff game on the road. But this is going to be a matchup of two titans, two heavyweights with Lamar and with Patrick Mahomes. But one of the things I want to mention about Houston, CJ Stroud, he belongs on the big screen, on the big stage. Good showing for the Houston Texans into the playoffs, winning that playoff game at home against Cleveland. But in the second half of that game, especially against Houston or against Baltimore, the defense just a little too strong, a little too overpowering for CJ Stroud. Like Lamar said to him in the handshake line afterwards, he will be back, and there's no doubt about it in my mind. Houston had one heck of a run with obviously going from 4 wins or whatever it was to getting into the playoffs, into the divisional round, winning a playoff game. And, they've built themselves up a nice, a good class this year. They can build off of it, obviously, with the draft coming up. But with Will Anderson and CJ Stroud, a couple of kingpins, and they've got some good young talent coming back in the receiver core, maybe establish a little bit more of a running game, although Devin Singletary played well. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Now, the big question coming into next year, how will they be able to handle winning and, the success level? We talked about that with the Lions earlier this year. And last year, at the end of last year, they had a little taste of success towards the end of last year. The Lions went from the hunters to being the hunted, projected to be the top team in the NFC North. Obviously, they won it. They've done well with it, getting to the championship game in the NFC. That's going to be my question with Houston. How are they going to be able to handle being the hunted next year? But getting back to Baltimore again, their defense stepped up. They played really well to stop CJ Stroud and the Houston offense. Lamar Jackson played well. He's going to get Mark Andrews back. How much is he going to be a factor coming into that game coming up against Kansas City? But now their defense stepped up. Like I said, now they're going to have to match up against Patrick Mahomes. But the same could be said for Patrick Mahomes. How are they going to match up against Baltimore? Mahomes won that game on the road, against a very hostile environment in Buffalo. Well, with the Baltimore Ravens, this is going to be a whole different animal, I think. And I just think their defense is a little bit better. Lamar, I think, it's crazy to say that he's playing better than what Josh Allen's playing, because Josh Allen didn't lose that game against Kansas City. No way. And I just, how much of the blame do you put on Josh Allen? He could have made a couple of throws maybe towards the end of that game against Kansas City, but I can't put the blame on him in that loss. I look at Stephon Diggs dropping those 2 long passes. He catches that 60-yard bomb. They go down and score. They're going to win that game. Obviously, the wide right field goal, they would have went into overtime. I thought Josh Allen played fine. I think he played, better than average. He had a couple of hiccups during the game, but he is not the reason why Buffalo lost that game. I think Kansas City outplayed them. Obviously, they were able to get past their defense in the second half, and Patrick Mahomes does what Patrick Mahomes does. So, I just can't see it. And Kansas City, again, this is going to bring up a monster matchup again. Lamar against Mahomes. And so it's going to be exciting to see who takes that. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Detroit Lions. The Lions, of course, won another playoff game. Hard to believe it's been that long since Detroit won 2 playoff games. It's been 66 years. Now they go to San Francisco to try to exercise another demon. We know what that's all about. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back in less than a minute here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on the Captain Lou Sports Network, powered up by Belly Up Sports.
It's the biggest game of the year, and your team doesn't have a coach. They don't even have a game plan. You probably aren't feeling very good about their chances. Make sure you're prepared for one of the biggest financial decisions of your life, retirement. Do you have a coach? What about a plan? Set yourself up for success by calling 877-222-8849 and having Mindy and Nolan McIntosh and their team at McIntosh & Associates create your retirement playbook. They'll help you think through taxes, income, legacy planning, and much more. When you're done, you'll have a customized retirement game plan that you can feel confident in. Start planning today with Central Michigan's retirement coaches, Mindy and Nolan McIntosh at McIntosh & Associates. Call 877-222-8849. That's 877-222-8849. Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We're live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, powered up by Belly Up Sports, and of course, sponsored by McIntosh & Associates. Again, with us in 2024. Excited to have them along with us through all the sports that is carried on the Captain Lou Sports Network, all of our programming from our play-by-play to our coaches shows, you name it. That is McIntosh & Associates. Just, again, excited to have them as part of our Captain Lou Sports Network. And again, we're powered up by SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code Captain Lou for $20 off your first purchase. And if there's any kind of game you want to go to besides the NFL playoff games, NBA, NHL, college, you name it, they are the official secondary market of the Captain Lou Sports Network. And I know a lot of Big Ten schools as well. That is SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code Captain Lou for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Boz Echivarre is going to join us. He is our San Francisco insider, and we're going to get set on the San Francisco side of the ball. We'll talk a little bit about him about the Packers game against San Francisco, as well as they're going to now take on the Detroit Lions into the NFC Championship game. So let's get right into it. Speaking of the Detroit Lions, they hung on to beat Tampa Bay on Sunday afternoon. One hell of a game that was. Again, on the edge of our seats. Knew it was going to be a close one. Baker Mayfield, he's proved his muster. And Mike Evans, again, showed why he's one of the best wide receivers of all time, if not one of the best. If he's not the best in Tampa Bay history, obviously he's one of the best ones in all time. 10 straight years of 1,000 yards in receiving, and he definitely had a show against Detroit with 150-some yards. But Detroit was able to hang on. Tampa couldn't stop their offense when they had to, and Detroit came up with the big play on defense with that Derek Barnes interception with about a minute and a half to go, or a minute 40 to go in the contest. So Detroit hangs on, advancing to their first NFC Championship game since 1991, when they took on the Washington Redskins and got boat raced by the Redskins. But now they're going to take on a San Francisco 49er team that they had their struggles against Green Bay. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Jared Goff, after that first drive, when he almost had that pick in the end zone, he was spectacular. He shook it off. And you can tell by watching him, his demeanor. He doesn't get rattled out there. And he was able to pick apart the Tampa Bay defense when he had to. Clutch plays, 3rd down and 15, you name it. Some great pass, obviously, to Amon-Ra St. Brown to put Detroit up 31-17. And then, of course, that opening touchdown pass to Josh Reynolds, the reads he had on it. What can you say about the blocking of the Detroit Lions offensive line? I mean, it just, again, it gave Goff the time he needed to pick apart Tampa's defense. They picked up the blitzes, the schemes, the defensive schemes. It was another great showing by the Detroit Lions offense. Frank Ragnow playing with a sprained knee and a sprained ankle, suffered in that opening half of that game. Of course, Jonah Jackson going out with the injury. Everybody's banged up in the playoffs. San Francisco can attest to that with, with Deebo Samuel being 50-50 coming up for this game against Detroit on Sunday. But, yeah, Goff looked good. And, of course, the offense is clicking like we talked about it with Gibbs, Montgomery, Laporta, Reynolds, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you name it. It's been so fun to watch. It's been a long time since Detroit's had a team like this. Now, you could say back in the early 90s when they had Barry, when they had Herman Moore, I don't think they had the quarterback play that they've got now. They had a decent defense. Detroit in 91 had probably one of the best offensive lines in the game. But we all know what happened there with Mike Utley getting injured. And then, of course, Eric Andelsek dying in that freak accident. But this has been one of the best teams Detroit's ever had, obviously, in our lifetimes. But they're clicking right now. And they're going to Santa Clara to take on the 49ers. And they've got a lot of momentum going. Winning breeds confidence. And I tell you, the game was close at halftime, but they didn't get rattled. The big thing in that series or in that game was when they were able to come out and stop Tampa Bay right out of the chute coming in the third quarter. Both teams really didn't capitalize right away, but Detroit was able to stem the tide with that opening possession of Tampa Bay in the third quarter. I can't remember what game I watched this weekend where they talked about the opening 4 minutes and then the second 4 minutes, the closing 4 minutes of the first half and the opening 4 minutes of the second half is so huge. And Detroit was able to squash that for Tampa Bay. Then they were able to get momentum and they were able to get that 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter, 31-17. And here you go. And they were able to hold off Tampa Bay. Couple of interesting things in that game. Obviously, Tampa Bay going for 2 when it was 31-23. I don't get it. I've seen a couple of articles on it, and I got to agree with Mike Wilbon. We were watching Pardon the Interruption on Monday night, and he was lamenting the analytics. I just don't understand. And I listened to some of the players. It was interesting to listen to Keyshawn Johnson and Michael Irvin, which you take them with a grain of salt, but they brought up a couple of good points on Monday talking about there is such a level of confidence that your team has when you're only down 7 as opposed to 8, because it's a mindset. You're going in, if you get that, you kick that extra point. It's like we don't have to, you have a feeling when you're down 8, you still have to score twice, because not only do you have to get the touchdown, you still got to get the 2-point conversion, where that mental mindset is all you have to do is kick the extra point when you're down 7. And that's the thing that I took away from all the explanations, and they both agreed on it, and they both played. Now, I know what the analytics say. You get down 8, or if you make it, you're down 6. Then then you're at least tied going into the last one. Then you can kick the extra point, and you can win the game there instead of going to overtime. But I go back to, it's so much easier mentally on a team to do that, to kick the extra point. Then you're only down a touchdown. You stop Detroit, which they did. They had an opportunity to maybe go down and tie it. But, of course, the interception kind of made that a moot point. But I still don't understand why they went for the 2-point conversion. And God bless them. They can it helped Detroit out. The other thing, obviously, was, Detroit kind of misplayed the timing when they were taking a knee and everything. Tampa Bay had an opportunity to force Detroit to kick a field goal. Now, this wasn't a gimme. It would have been, I think, a 48-yard field goal, if I'm not mistaken, or a 45-yard field goal. Tampa didn't call a timeout. They let Detroit run down the clock. I don't know if I'm going to butcher or, really emasculate Todd Bowles on that one. I mean, yeah, he probably should have called the timeout and tried to block the kick, or if they miss it, they got a chance for a Hail Mary. I honestly think that if they'd have called the timeout, Detroit had 4th down, I honestly think that Dan Campbell would have went for it to give them a longer field. I don't think he would have went to kick the field goal. To me, there was an opportunity. If it was missed, they got a great opportunity for a Hail Mary, or if it was blocked, but that's going to be one that's going to be debated. It's been debated all week. Should Todd Bowles have tried to kick the extra, call the timeout to try to block the field goal or play for it to be missed? They would have had a Hail Mary opportunity with a few seconds left. Who knows? That's going to be debated now until the end of time. But Detroit was the better team. And I got to tell you one thing about Baker Mayfield. He played great. Just absolutely played great. And does he deserve a lengthy contract? I don't know. I think he's played himself into getting another contract. Is it going to be in Tampa Bay? It sounds like they really like him there. Mike Evans wants him there. And there's another guy that deserves another contract. Get a running game. I mean, White's not a bad runner for Tampa, but the fortunate thing right now, anyways, is they got an opportunity to be the Kings in that division. Do you trust New Orleans with Derek Carr, Dennis Allen? Do you trust Carolina? Bryce Young still hasn't proven anything. Atlanta's a mess. We don't even know who their coach is going to be, or who their quarterback is, or what's going on down there. I think this is a prime opportunity for Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay to go back to the playoffs. That's a 9-10 win team every year right now. And they've got a good defense. They've got a good coach in Todd Bowles. If they shore up the offense, maybe get another running back, maybe another body or two on defense, they're going to be right there. And Baker Mayfield played well, and he's got him a playoff win. Say what you want. They beat Philadelphia. They made it to the divisional round. I think you could see him getting a contract. But, that's Tampa Bay. We'll wait and see. We'll watch that. What now? Can the Detroit defense, now they're going to be taking on San Francisco coming up in the playoffs, or this Sunday in the NFC Championship game, 6:30 Eastern time. What is it going to take for their defense to handle the weapons of San Francisco? And you can say what you want about Brock Purdy. A lot of people aren't giving him credit. He had a sloppy game. The rust definitely hurt him. There's no doubt about it. Green Bay had a great game plan in that one. But, Brock Purdy, when they had to have him in that final drive, he proved his mustard, in my opinion. Detroit's Cam Sutton has just been torched lately for Detroit. And I got a feeling San Francisco is going to try to exploit that. They've got so many weapons, a loaded team. Obviously, the farther you get, the better the team is for the most part. You've got McCaffrey. You've got Deebo Samuel if he plays. You've got Jennings. You've got Kittle. You've got Ayuk. I mean, the list of candidates to torch Detroit is there. But, if Detroit can stay at home and avoid the mistakes, I think they've got a good shot at it. And I'm not that worried about Detroit on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, San Francisco had their issues with Green Bay. Now, the Packers, I think the biggest issue with the Packers was they could not cash in the red zone in the first half, missing a field goal and then missing on their opportunities in the second half, or in the first half, only getting field goals. Detroit cannot do that, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball if they want to expect to beat San Francisco. It's obviously going to take a near flawless effort, and they can't get behind. Detroit's defense is not a good from behind team playing team. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And the four teams are set: Detroit against San Francisco, and Baltimore and Kansas City. So without any further ado, let's go to the Captain Lou guest line, and let's bring in a friend of the show. It's been a while since we've been able to talk to Boz Echivarre joining us, our San Francisco insider. Boz, welcome to the program again. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm doing very good. It's good to see you and hear your voice again.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's been a while. Everything's going good over on the left coast, I take it?
Yeah. I mean, things are going great, and I just want to offer my condolences too, man. I know we're taking your coach back to LA, but it'll be good to see Jim Harbaugh back on this coast again.
Before we get into the big matchup and what San Francisco did this past weekend, Boz, has it been 10 years? It's been 10 years since he took San Francisco to the Super Bowl, 10 or 11, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was a 2012 season that they went. So
wow,
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how fast time flies.
And he did well in Michigan. Obviously, there's the stuff that's going on right now. I mean, obviously, I don't know if he's taking the Pete Carroll route, staying one step ahead of the NCAA. But yeah, I think I'm excited to see what he can do with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I think that could be a very good match.
Yeah, just remember what he did with Alex Smith at the helm.
Ooh, yeah.
And the quarterback that Alex Smith became with the leadership style that Jim Harbaugh, and I mean, even going to Michigan too, and the job that he did there is absolutely, it was amazing. And I've been pulling, obviously, with Jim Harbaugh being a former Niner coach,
Mm-hmm.
been a fan of him and the work that he's done at Michigan because, man, that was really fun to see, and congrats on the national championship. That was a fun run for
Well, it
sure.
sure was. And, they did it obviously the old fashioned way, really, running the ball and just, a kind of a muscle you type of a game plan on both sides of the ball, throwing it when they had to. But I still think it's going to be interesting to see what he is able to do with a quarterback with the talent level of Justin Herbert. And I think maybe bringing a little more discipline to a Chargers team.
Yeah, and I think that's what they've been lacking the last couple of years. Way too many close games, a lot of questionable coaching decisions,
Yeah.
and when you look at Harbaugh, it's very in your face. It's very, we're coming after you and we're going to beat you up. And
Yeah.
I mean that's the Harbaugh way. It's very old school and it's fun. It's almost Dan Campbell-ish in the NFL.
Well, speaking of Dan Campbell, we'll get to the matchup in a minute as they're going to be taking on your 49ers. But I want to get back, start off first with talking to you about that game against the Packers on Saturday. Boy, oh boy, I almost sent you a note after the game to check on your heartbeat. That was a little closer, I think, than a lot of San Francisco fans had thought it would be.
It's interesting you bring that up because you look at the starters, they didn't play week 18
right
against the Rams. And I think we've had this conversation before with the Stanley Cup playoffs, the whole rest versus rust type thing. And I'm always, this late in the season, if you're going into a bye week, you just a quarter, a half, something just to get you ready for what game of speed is going to look like.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we had the trouble. It just looked like Brock Purdy was kind of a step behind for the first three quarters. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, hey, here we go. And then that's where we started seeing the Niners be a little bit more clean. His passes were a little bit more crisper. A lot of the rust was kind of being shaken off. And I'm not gonna lie, it probably took about 20 years off of my life, that game.
Yeah.
But I think I saw a lot of rust, and I think it is a little bit of a wake up call for the Niners of, hey, like, we're in the playoffs again. Where there's expectations here.
Boz, what it looked like to me was almost a carbon copy when Green Bay came into Detroit Thanksgiving. We weren't expecting on the defensive side of the ball, anyways, from Green Bay, the amount of success they were having, the amount of pressure that they put on Goff. And I kind of saw that a little bit in the first half against the 49ers. It was almost like they didn't expect that out of them. And, that's kind of the impression I got.
I agree with that. You look at both of those, I guess that game, the Dallas game and the Niner game, like the Thanksgiving, the Dallas and the Niner game. Well, Fleur's been, let's go get him from the jump. Let's go jump on top of these teams that they might be more experienced. They might have more veteran leadership. They might be better than us in all the aspects of the game. But if we can jump on top of them, it might trigger the panic button. And you saw that with Dallas. Like, Dallas wilted under that.
Yeah. Boy, you could sure tell the leadership difference with between San Francisco and Dallas. I didn't see any finger pointing on the San Francisco sideline. Now, granted, San Francisco wasn't behind 27-0, but even when it was early, you could sense it in Dallas. You didn't see that in San Francisco. They persevered through it, and you could just see the maturity level, the difference.
Yeah, and I think that speaks volumes about the culture in that locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard the whole saying, sometimes it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes.
Yeah.
And the culture that the Niners have built. I think I saw a video where pregame for the pregame of that divisional round, Azeez Al-Shaair, who is a starting linebacker for the Tennessee Titans, he was in the
Mhm.
Niner linebacker huddle,
Yes.
being a part of that warm up, that circle,
Mhm.
and you just don't see that where current NFL players playing for other teams are
Yeah.
coming back and being a part of the pregame warm up for a team that they played with.
Yeah. I saw that the other day and I couldn't believe it. And that you're right, that speaks volumes. Now, San Francisco, I think, one of their strengths obviously is their defense, and Green Bay couldn't put them away in the first half. They were only able to get field goals in the red zone. And I think that was their demise ultimately. Um, Denver had that Detroit line bend but don't break, or not Denver, San Francisco had the bend but don't break. And I think that was huge. And I think you could see the confidence level in San Francisco's defense towards the end of the first half, when Green Bay was unable to take advantage of those opportunities.
I agree with that, and that's kind of been the Niners MO for the past 3 seasons is we'll give up yards, we'll give up a lot of the stuff underneath, and you'll get to the red zone,
Mm-hmm.
but we're okay if you put up 3 points. We
Right.
can live with giving up 3 points because we're going to get the ball back, and we're going to the attitude is we're going to drive down the field. We'll give you the yards, but you just won't get the 6.
Right.
The thing with the Niners D though is they're susceptible to the inside run.
Yeah.
Between the tackles, and I think that's going to be a fun matchup to see because
Yeah.
the Niners have been missing Eric Armstead for a lot of the back half of the season, and that's where they've been getting gashed up in the middle. And of course, the addition of Javon Hargrave. So you have Hargrave and Armstead in the middle, but that's also where a lot of the runs have been going. So it'll be interesting, like the Montgomery matchup going up the middle and seeing how you put a lot of linebackers and if I saw this last week, if Detroit can keep the Niners in their base 3-4 defense and target Owen Burks, it should be an interesting day because you target Owen Burks or Ambry Thomas, the corner. It could be a long day for the 49ers defense.
Well, I have a feeling just, right off the top, if I was a betting man, I don't bet on Lions games. I haven't. The only time I did this year was Thanksgiving and they lost. So I don't do it. I don't touch it. But if I was to, I still think it's the best bet is the over because that's Detroit's weakness is kind of what your weakness or San Francisco's weakness is with Court. Sutton's having just a god awful month, if not longer. And I think the passing of Brock Purdy, I think, could expose that a little bit with or without Debo. And so that's the first matchup that I want to see with Detroit on the defensive side of the ball is how are they going to be able to contain Ayuk or, Kittle or Jennings or whoever, if Debo doesn't play. Everybody says if Debo is only 50-50, Detroit's got a shot to win, which I think they got a shot, but Detroit gives up big plays to other receivers too.
I think that's the thing too to remember because it was 2021 when these two teams played. And I think this was Dan Campbell's. It was his first year there.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yep.
And I remember being at that game and looking at this Lions team and just being like, this is going to be a good team in about 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Because they had all the marking blocks for it. I know San Francisco kind of jumped out to a big lead, and Detroit came roaring back. And to your point, it's those big plays with the Niners, and I love this matchup because it's just so physical.
Yeah.
Because you have, and what I love about this Niners team, and I'm kind of fanboying about it, but the receivers are just so physical. Because if you with runs on the outside, and we know Kyle Shanahan's an outside run guy,
right.
Outside zone run. The problem with that is that if McCaffrey gets to the second level, you have a Jawan Jennings in the second level, a Brandon Ayuk. If you remember the first game of the season against the Steelers, you had Ayuk blocking about 20 yards downfield that sprung Christian McCaffrey. So that's one of the hard things about playing the Niners is that the receivers are so physical downfield and they stay on their blocks.
Oh,
And
and you bring up a great point. That's the Lions. You know, you don't think of Jameson Williams as a blocker. Watch some of the tape of the Lions, and you watch JMO blocking, just like you say with Ayuk or Jennings, 20 to 25 yards down the field. He's making a block. The guy's about 180 pounds soaking wet, but he's not afraid to block. And I love that aspect of the 49ers. That's a great point. I'm going to keep an eye on that because I really think that's going to be something to look forward to. But the Lions kind of are the same way. And I love your analogy about the physicality. This is going to be I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but it's going to be a physical game.
Oh yeah. Defenses are they're going to get beat up, and like if you love old school football where it's just a slobber knocker, you're in each other's face. Like this is just looking at yourself in the mirror because I think the cultures for this team are really similar. The team cares about each other. I think this is the moment I knew the Lions had the right culture was Hard Knocks. When Aiden Hutchinson was up there doing the Billie Jean rookie show thing, right? And he had the whole locker room going. I'm like, that's the locker room that every franchise wishes they had. Mm-hmm. And only the good teams, the great teams, really have those kind of locker rooms because it shows that I have your back no matter what. Like you have veteran guys going along singing Billie Jean with a rookie. Granted, he's a first-round rookie, a Michigan guy.
Right.
It's absolutely amazing. Like I love that culture of Detroit. It just reminds it speaks volumes of that towards like what the two franchises have right now.
So I got to ask you, you know, obviously that it's on the national scene with the debate with Brock Purdy. You know, he shook off that rust. What obviously to me, what won me over was that game-winning drive. You know, that stuff that'll cement yourself. I think he's already cemented himself in the locker room, but what has been your overall impression of Brock Purdy over the, you know, since he became the starter?
I think last year was kind of just like, well, let's see where it goes. Mm-hmm. And for me, what solidified him as the starting quarterback in San Francisco was the game-ending drive against Cleveland because he didn't have a good day.
Okay,
he lost Trent Williams, he lost Deebo Samuel in that game,
mm-hmm.
and he drove the team down against what was at the time the league's best defense. And I think as the season ended, Cleveland was still a top 5 defense in the league.
Right.
But he drove the team down and gave them a chance to win the game. And Jake Moody just pushed the field goal.
Right.
And I think the great quarterbacks in this league, they know they have rough games, but they just find a way to be in position to set their teammates up to go win the game.
Yeah.
And that's one of the more overlooked facts because like a lot of like, well, Brock Purdy had the 3-game skid against Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Minnesota.
That drives me nuts.
And they gloss over the fact that the Niners had a chance to win the game, but the team didn't win the game.
Yeah.
Because of a missed field goal at the end of regulation.
Mm-hmm. Well, what he cemented, you know, obviously that game-winning drive against Green Bay was a thing of beauty. That's a pressure-packed situation, and obviously they didn't play well in the first half. Well, up to their expectations. You know, Green Bay, you got to give a lot of that credit to Green Bay. I mean, they put them to the test. But to me, that established Brock Purdy as one of the, you know, at least the top 15 quarterbacks, top 10 quarterbacks in the league. Because winning's got to mean something, Boz. It's got to mean something. And under a pressure situation like that, to me, that proved his mettle.
Isn't that why everyone wants to play in the playoffs is for a moment like that?
Yeah.
to go drive your team downfield
Right.
and go win a big game.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool because it's the Green Bay Packers. It's I don't know if saying the most towards rivalry is the right thing, but in terms of playoff, to do that like in the 10th meeting between those two teams, where especially in recent history, it seems like that's the big matchup in the playoffs. That's pretty incredible for
Yeah.
a guy who's 22 years old, and it just speaks volumes of how level-headed he is. And I think that when you listen to the Niners, that's all they talk about is how calm, how collected he is. He doesn't really yell at his teammates, but when he does, it's I should probably listen because it's important.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important about the quarterback position is that they can galvanize the team, but they can also stay calm and collected in those situations.
All right. So put on your 49er hat. What is, in your opinion, what is it going to take for San Francisco to win this game Sunday against Detroit?
Yeah, big thing. Right side of the O-line. It's been a problem for the 49ers. McKivitz and oh man, it's not Banks who's over there. It might be Feliciano who's on that side.
Okay.
They struggled, and I know that'd probably be a good spot for Hutchinson to come over. With the Niners, they struggled against cover 2 zone with the Packers. So that would be something that I might see an adjustment with the Lions D trying to make. And then defensively for the 49ers, they got to put pressure on Jared Goff.
Yeah.
I think Goff going to Detroit was probably the best thing for his career. And I think like what him being back in the NFC Championship game with the offense that he has it speaks volumes about that. And I know the Niners defense loves seeing him. Detroit has a great O-line. It's a very stout O-line, and one of the problems for the Niners is that they haven't gotten to the quarterback a whole lot. Jordan Love didn't get sacked at all. He had a clean jersey last week, and I know I've kind of joked with you and Todd that Jared Goff has kind of been he averages about a pick 6 a game against the Niners defense, but a lot of that is because the front four can get to Jared Goff and cover that. But if that front four doesn't put the pressure that they're known for, it could be a long day. And if you have someone like Ambry Thomas on Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's gonna be a long day for sure.
Well, 100% on that, and it kind of surprised me with Tampa Bay the little that they blitzed Detroit in that game, and the stats are there. Obviously with a clean pocket, Jared Goff is so efficient, but when you put any kind of heat on him, he makes mistakes, and that's what I'm That's what I'm predicting out of San Francisco. I could see some extra edge blitzes or whatever, just to keep the heat on Detroit. I hope not from a Lions fan's point of view, but and from a Lions fan's point of view, I think they're going to have to get the heat on Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
I could see Aaron Glenn dialing up what he did against Tampa. I mean, what really shocked me was how much success Detroit had with the edge blitzes with Branch and with Anzalone or whatever. And I think they got to do that to Purdy early to kind of get him rattled a little bit.
I agree with that. Can I say this about the Bucs game?
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of game plan is great when you just decide to leave Hutchinson unblocked off the edge. I was blown away by how many times Tampa Bay just let him come in.
Yeah.
Just like he wasn't even breathed on. I was like, am I watching the same game that these coaches are? You're gonna let. I mean, if you're gonna do that, you might as well let Anzalone come in unblocked too. Like, just you got to know where Hutchinson is. You got to know where Anzalone is. I think those are the two guys. And Kyle's smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
But I was shocked that someone like Todd Bowles would let Hutchinson come in unblocked.
I couldn't believe it either. And then, like I was saying, I've never seen Detroit have as much success off the edge as they did in that game, which is great for me. But I mean, Baker Mayfield's got to be thinking, what the holy hell? But I just don't think San Francisco is going to give Detroit that opportunity. And that's going to be, to me, the key is to getting pressure on Purdy. And because if he's got time to throw, I'm worried about our back four. And that obviously, that to me is the number one concern as a Lions fan right there. I think Detroit can move the ball on San Francisco. I just worry about our defense, and we got to keep the heat on them.
Yeah, I agree. I think both ways it's with the defense on that, but it'll be interesting to see how the right side of the line will handle an Aiden Hutchinson and how they do that. I think you'll probably see Kittle or Juszczyk chip a lot, just try to help out, and then they would get out into space. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to this. It should be fun. Either way, I made money off of this game, so I'm
there. You go.
Yeah,
good deal.
We're good.
And yeah. I think Kittle's going to have 100 yards.
Wow.
I honestly do, because Detroit there's something about tight ends. Detroit just has a hard time with them. So if I was betting on the game, I'd put money on whatever's receiving yards. I'd put over. Just that's me. I got to ask you one more question before I let you go. We got about 5 minutes left. What is it with the LA Ram fan base and their podcasters and their media? They just, obviously I know there's a rivalry with you guys in the Bay Area, but geez, Pete's, I've never seen such a bitter, whiny fan base over the last week and a half or 2 weeks since Detroit beat them. And I just don't get it. The reason I ask that, Boz, obviously we have Detroit has a rivalry with Green Bay and with Chicago, especially. And we jab back and forth. But the name calling and the getting personal, I've never seen anything like it with this Ram fan base. And I see what they do to you guys. And I'm just like, what is it with that?
I maybe too much sun. I know they're getting rained on as much as we are, so I don't know. I don't know if it's a mix of not being able mentally to handle the weather, or I know you've probably seen the pictures of the waves washing over the guys. So I have no idea. They're probably salty from all the taking on those waves and then having the sun bake the salt onto their skin, and water. California's been in a drought for a little bit, so maybe the salt just soaked too much in their skin and it's causing these problems. But no, I mean, I agree. Like it's interesting because the Rams fan base, they weren't back. Then they kind of had that Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
I mean, and they hang it over our heads like we won the Super Bowl, we beat you guys to get to the Super Bowl. And I'm like, look. Other than the one game, like they're hanging the Week 18 win over our heads, and I'm like, no one played. You had Carson Wentz playing Sam Darnold, which in 2017 probably would have been a great matchup, and qualified for Sunday night.
Yeah,
but not Week 18. Like,
oh God,
what are we doing?
Yeah, it just I just don't see that out of your fan base coming at Detroit. Should Detroit win? I mean, there'll be some back and forth, but it's like I told the one guy, I said, you guys will be irrelevant in 5 years and you'll move back to St. Louis. So
I think there might be a lot of salty Niner fans if the Niners lose on Sunday, just because of the expectations that are on this team. I could see a lot of fans losing their mind about it, but just the way that dude, it's so hard not to root it's so hard not to root against the Lions because of just what they built, and they've done it the right way.
Yeah,
and they've done it by building a culture in the locker room. Like if I didn't have the 49ers, man, anytime I hear Dan Campbell speak, I'm like, dude, I want to run through a wall for you, man.
Boy, that's how I feel, man. We're very lucky. You guys got a guy in Kyle Shanahan, one of the smartest coaches that have been around in the last quarter century. So, Boz, I got to leave it there. I'm up against it. Thanks a lot for coming out. Enjoy the game Sunday. I'm sure we'll be sending a couple of messages back and forth afterwards. But thanks for taking time out tonight. This is always fun. We'll get you on again. It won't be as long next time, I promise.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. Love you, brother.
All right. Love you too, brother. Hang in there. Boz Echivarre he's our our West Coast insider, San Francisco 49ers especially. It's going to be such a fantastic game coming up this weekend against San Francisco. And I can't wait for it. Obviously, it's going to be two monumental games coming up with Baltimore and Kansas City. That's going to be a monster leading off in the opening game, 3:00 on CBS. And then we get the Fox broadcast of the Lions in San Francisco. It's going to be hard for me to pick against Lamar. But Kansas City, until you beat them, they're always there. It's going to be such a great matchup. And of course, Detroit and San Francisco. Yeah, it's oh boy, I can't wait. T-minus 4 days. Can't wait. And so hopefully I'll be back to 100% health-wise. Can't wait for that too. All right. Thanks to Boz Echivarre for joining us here on the show. We're up against, as I mentioned, want to thank everybody for stopping by and joining us here. We'll be back with 2 shows next week. Good Lord willing, health and a whole bit. ACHA Power Play next Tuesday. And then next Wednesday, another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza, which the Super Bowl will be set. And we'll talk all about it. All right, everybody, that's going to do it. Captain Lou saying so long. Thanks to everybody taking time out. We are powered up by Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek, and Macintosh and Associates. For everybody involved, Captain Lou saying keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on the Captain Lou Sports Network. So long.